Hello, everybody, and welcome to the show. This is Multifamily Chronicles, and I'm your host, Adrian Danila. Our guest today is Russ Webb. Russ is the executive director of the Bay Area Apartment Association in Tampa. Welcome to the show, Russ.
Hey, thanks, Adrian. Good to see you again.
Russ, for the two people that don't know you in apartment industry, why don't you introduce yourself to the two that don't know you?
All right, for the two that don't know me, hi, everybody. Russ Webb, Executive Director, Bay Area Apartment Association. So my association covers greater Tampa Bay. So that is Tampa, St. Pete, Clearwater, Sarasota, Venice. Kind of, if you look at Florida, it's kind of the left side and the middle is kind of who we are. It's all of greater Tampa Bay. We're the largest apartment association in Florida. We about 245,000 units. Love being part of it. I've been here about 3 years. I moved down here. Prior to this, for 21 years, I ran the day-to-day of the Atlanta and Georgia Apartment Association. So I've been in the space for a very long time. But this was kind of a cool opportunity to build something down here. And thankfully, I've got an amazing team that has helped me do that. But yeah, thank you, Adrian. Appreciate that.
Russ, why don't you share with us a few great things that are going on with your association currently?
Yeah, thanks. So the thing we're most excited about right now is that we're actually in the process. We're about a month out from launching our professional development center, our training center. The association has been around since 1928. So we're approaching 100 years old. But the association had never had a full-time executive director and staff prior to me because they had been run by a third-party company during that time. So the association's never really had a home. During all this time, I moved down here, and then 2 months after I moved down here, COVID happened and the world locked down. So my team was operating in a remote environment, and we were still in a remote environment. And we realized that we really don't need an office. What we need is a training center, because we do a lot of training. We do a lot of education on both the property management side as well as the maintenance side, specifically on the maintenance side. So we are building a professional development center, and so we're about 30 days out from opening up, and we're very excited about that. That's probably one of our main focuses right now. And also we're trying to make sure it's very important for us that we're reaching all parts of our membership. So we're looking at all of our programming that we do, and my director of programs, Crystal Humphrey's pretty amazing, and she is kind of examining everything we do for events and education just to make sure the things that we are offering that are impacting all parts of the membership. We don't want anybody left out.
You mentioned maintenance, and as you know, I grew up in maintenance. I came up in maintenance. I started as a groundskeeper my career. So maintenance is something that I'm super passionate about, and especially maintenance development of maintenance professionals. Could you elaborate a little bit on the programs that you have going on for association members, for their maintenance professionals, and also for people that are maybe outside the industry that want to step into the industry and become part of a service maintenance team?
Yeah, sure. So typically, what associations do is we focus most of our training on the people that are already in the industry. We look at doing all the hands-on primers, all of the refresher courses, as well as the certifications, the CAMT, the EPA, CPO, all of those. And we do all of that. But in addition, we realized after talking to our members that one of the biggest needs we had right now, obviously, but everybody has, is staffing. And the bigger problem is that there's no pipeline feeding people into the industry. There's zero pipeline. And one of the reasons that is that, and I think you and I talked about it in the past, it's what I call the biggest lie that's ever happened in the history of our country, and that we told everybody that they had to have a 4-year degree. And because of that, the trades are losing people rapidly. There are no mechanics, plumbers, electricians. And these are things that we need. And we told everybody they had to have a 4-year degree. So they get in debt, they get this degree, and then they end up, having trouble finding that job. Whereas we all need tradesmen in such a huge way. These are the people that move our economy forward. And so we realized that this was a big need. So we partnered with a local college who was able to get a grant, a workforce development grant. And we have a maintenance apprenticeship program. We're on class number 3 right now of our maintenance apprenticeship. And basically what happens is these apprentices come in and they'll do multiple trainings, but it's a 1-year program. And during most of the time they're working OJT, working on the job at an apartment community. But by the time they're done with the program, they will have their EPA, their CPO, electric, AC, carpentry, cabinetry, flooring, all the skills, including their CAMT at the end of the program. And the employer doesn't have to pay anything, nor does the student for any of that training. It's all covered by grants. So we're on class number 3 of that. And while we realize this is a great program, the one problem that it does have is that it's a 1-year program. So it takes a long time to create a maintenance technician. So we're also starting another program that's going to be for basically what we consider what would be a punch tech. And we're trying to do a program that's a fast track program. And in 60 days, we'll turn out a punch tech and they'll be employed right then. And if they stay with the program and they stay with their employer, then they will be getting a discount on all the future certifications for getting their EPA certification, for getting their CPO, for getting their CAMT, as long as they stay with the program. We also have a certificate for residential property management for the property management side for leasing agents that we do at a night school with the same college to be able to try to get people into that side of the field. So that's to get people in to the industry. And then while they're in the industry, we do all the normal training that you would think about. We do electrical, we do carpentry, we do HVAC, we do EPA certifications, we do CPO. We're also, we offer CAMT twice a year. And for the first time in 2023, we'll be offering CAMT 100% in Spanish. The class will be taught in Spanish and the testing will be done in Spanish. We have a lot of Spanish-speaking residents that are here in Tampa Bay that Spanish is their first language. So we realized the need for that. So we found an instructor, and that program is going to be launching in 2023, which we're pretty excited about.
That's super exciting. I do want to ask Russ, how many people graduate each time you finish one of those modules, the programs?
Yeah, so for the apprenticeship, it's anywhere between 8 and 11 for the apprenticeship. For those punch tag programs, we're hoping to get 20 at a time. So every 60 days, we could turn out 20 new punch tags, which we're pretty excited about. And then for the leasing side, on that certificate for residential property management, that's typically 12 to 15 at a time.
Do you think that there's any value into some of your members coming and teaming up with you and actually replicate this program, basically do a partnership with your association? Instead, let's say, you have, how many members do you have in your area?
Yeah, I mean, we've 175 management companies, managing about close to 250,000 units.
Yes, so it's a wonderful start, having 20 to 30, people each quarter about. Yeah, but then it's not nearly sufficient. Probably a single company could absorb all of them and then some. So I would think that, I would hope that, some of your members will come and say, hey, let's team up, let's partner and do a program just for our company, because we need so many people and we need so many qualified people and we can't get them. And this is definitely a way to get them. You make a commitment to them. Chances are they're going to make a commitment back to you. They're going to replicate. Do you disagree?
No, I 100% agree. We have such a labor shortage right now in multifamily, but specifically on the maintenance side. And I don't know, how we're going to turn that tide, because the problem is we can't create service technicians fast enough to fill the empty positions and the people that are retiring out. And with competition being the way that it is, a lot of our service techs are being hired by, companies that traditionally have been our supplier partners. And now they're hiring a service techs because, let's face it, the pay's better. In commercial real estate, the pay can be better. So they're hiring out those people. But more importantly, I think this is very important to note. A lot of our companies have finally realized, and they've come to the realization that the service techs are the backbone of what holds everything together, especially on the customer service side. And if they take care of those people and listen to what their service technicians are saying, that they're going to be able to retain them for longer periods of time as well, because people are leaving because of wages. That's just a matter of life. But a bigger reason why that people are leaving is because they feel underappreciated at their job. They talk a lot about the great resignation that was been going on, and I don't like that term at all. I think it's more like the great awakening. People have realized that I don't have to work somewhere where I'm not happy. There's so many other people out there that are hiring. I can go someplace where I'm happy, where I'm appreciated. And I think that's very important right now. And I think a lot of our companies in our industry are starting to realize that.
There's just so much to and so much to unpack in what you just said, Russ. So I'm going to start with, with the way people are treated. definitely company culture plays a huge, huge, huge role. The way I see the whole crisis happening is that you need to make a certain wage in order to survive. So there's a minimum requirement. Like I cannot make less than $20 an hour. I'm making up a number. The number
Sure.
could be 16, could be $30 an hour. So at that point, an employee or a potential employee would say, I cannot take a job if I'm taking less than $20 an hour. I'm not making a living. I'm behind on bills. Like I must make that much. And that's, the cost of living, basically,
Yep.
rent and food and gas and everything else. So that's the first step, right? And I think that's the first thing that, the company should they should be able to provide a living wage. Because if someone can't make a living of that type of wage, how could you expect they're going to be happy at work? How could you expect that they're going to be focusing on the job and give you 100% when in their mind is that I don't even make enough money to pay my bills, right? So that's the first thing. And then after you meet that minimum requirement, you put something on top of that. And, something is, some extra compensation. So people don't just live from paycheck to paycheck, right? They come to work because they want to work, like they want to be there, not because they must, they must make a paycheck. And secondly, culture, the way you treat them. I run so many polls on LinkedIn, and the way people are underappreciated and they're treated like the invisible people, it's one of the top reasons over and over and over again, not just in maintenance, but especially in maintenance. I used to say maintenance and vendor partners are the forgotten people of the industry. And that has to change. Like if we want to see better results, different results, we have to approach that situation differently. Otherwise, nothing's gonna change. Do you disagree?
No, 100%. I mean, we're in an interesting place in Tampa Bay, because in Tampa Bay, we have the highest inflation in the country. We actually led the nation in inflation at 11.7%. So you had a lot of companies here that were giving their employees mid-year salary bumps only because the inflation had become so high. And this is not just in multifamily, it's across the board and a lot of different companies. But like you said, there is such thing as the living wage. The living wage in Tampa is not the same living wage in Dubuque, Iowa. I mean, they're very different living wages. But let's just say that everyone is paying the living wage. Let's say the living wage is X dollars an hour and everyone's paying that because you have to pay it to get employees. Well, at that point in time, then it becomes about culture. And so in our industry, as you know, everyone's close, everyone talks like that. And what will happen is if someone is at a job and they're making money, but they're not necessarily looking forward to going to work every day, and they talk to a friend, they talk to a peer who says, well, my company, we get this extra thing, whatever this thing is, this amenity, my company takes care of us. My company listens to us. They believe in mental health days. They believe that this is important. They understand that, that how my mental health is a big part of how I play across to the residents. When companies start learning that, and they realize that by keeping those employees, it's a big deal. We've got a company here in Tampa that's a family-owned property management company, and they have employees there who have been 25, 30 years at the company. And you'll find these employees, their children who are now adults, go to work for the company. And they've created a sense of culture to the point where no one wants to leave the company. They feel like they're part of the family that owns the company, although they're not part of the family that owns the company. They feel like that. So I think anybody can create that. Anyone can create that sense of culture. And I think it's very important. When we get to that living wage that we all have to be able to pay the bills, when you get beyond that, that's the thing that companies need to spend more time focusing on, because especially for the generation right now, the Gen Zs, they're looking for an experience. It's like when we talked about millennials. If you were to give a millennial $10,000, they're going to buy stuff. They're going to buy things. You give a Gen Z $10,000, they're going to buy an experience. They believe in experiences. Therefore, they're not going to work somewhere where the experience is bad. They're not going to do that because there will be something else that's out there. And I hate when I see someone say, well, if they need a job bad enough, they'll come work here. And I'm like, if you have that attitude, then all your HR will ever be is a revolving door of new people all the time.
100% agree. So, Russ, you just mentioned a private-owned company that's a member of your association, with a very long tenure employees, and they're bringing their family, their children, to work for the same company. How do we replicate that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what we start with that culture. I mean, the question that everyone should ask themselves is, do our employees, or are my employees feeling appreciated? Do they feel appreciated? Do they enjoy coming to work every day? The more important thing of that is they're not asking the question. I know my good friends from Swift Bunny, and Swift Bunny's entire business model is to help people retain their employees. That's the entire model of that, because they realized that the turnover in multifamily was second only to hospitality, and that's not sustainable. It's just not sustainable, because it cost. I mean, Joe Bailey told me one time that it cost, like, the amount that it costs to hire a new person, he said, goes up and up every year, and not by 1 or 2%, goes up 5 to 7% every single year of the things you have to do to find and then onboard a new person. And why would you want to spend all that time and effort in constantly recruiting and trying to get someone trained to have them stay a short period of time, when you could spend just a little bit of time finding out what are the trigger points that are keeping your people, happy? I mean, Mary Gwen from Rent Dynamics is a perfect example of someone who is all the time asking her employees, how are you, and how are you feeling, and do you enjoy working here, and wanting to know kind of how they're ticking, so that they can make sure that working for her property management company is a great experience. You and I know our friends at Rangewater, and they kind of have the same philosophy. They want to make work fun, and they want people to look forward to going to work every day. And I think there are companies out there that are doing it, but I think for some companies, they just got so busy doing the work that they forgot about you're not going to have the people to do the work. So I think it's replicatable. I do, yeah.
Russ, how do we take the show on the road? Not within our circle, not inside our group, inside your association, inside Atlanta's, or anywhere in a country. How do we go out of the industry, right? We go out, and how do we recruit? For example, I'm thinking about you, me, a couple of management companies getting together, taking someone with a camera with us, and do a job fair at a high school in Tampa.
Oh, yeah.
and tell the kids, what is it like to work in property management? What are the benefits? What are the great careers that are waiting for them? And this comes with nearly no expense out of their pocket. They could actually start entry level as a leasing agent or as a groundskeeper, work their way up to become the CEO or the president of a company. These are many, many cases that I know personally myself, and there's so many that I don't know out there. Wouldn't this be like a wonderful way for us to sell outside the industry and get to the young generation before they go out there in a world, and before they see 1,000 other opportunities? And obviously you compete with 1,000 other trades, let's say. Wouldn't that be a great opportunity for us as an industry to do something like this?
Oh, it'd be fantastic. I mean, it's so funny. I don't know if I'm sure you've done this, but go find 10 property management professionals and ask them, how did you get into the industry? It's an accidental career.
Yes.
There are very few of them. Now, there are some that were like, well, my mom was in property management, or my dad was in property management, so therefore I followed them into the industry. But for most people, it's an accidental career. They were in college and they decided to do a part-time leasing agent job. I met a maintenance director who was going to a technical school, and he needed a part-time job. So I answered a thing for a weekend service technician at an apartment community. And now he's director of 4,500 units. But it's an accidental career. We've got to change that. It has to be a career path where when someone is in high school and someone says, well, what do you want to do? They don't say, well, I'm not sure, or I may do this. They will say, well, I really want to go into property management. That needs to happen. And you're right. High school is where it starts. And maybe even middle school. maybe even middle school on those they'll have those career days. Maybe we need to make sure that there are people out of those middle schools speaking on career days about how property management is a career. I think that's important.
We should start a movement. I'll be the first one to back you up. Turning it from an accidental career to one that's on purpose.
Yeah.
A career that's intentional. It's an intentional career, right? It's intentional. It's not by accident. I would love for us to start something like this again. I will be all in, and I'll be the biggest advocate for that. I know you had great programs like the ones that you just mentioned, and others in the past that rally and brought in a lot of new blood. But you're one person, you're one association. We need more. We need more of our peers to join us and create a movement. We really need a movement. If we were to make the difference that needs to be made at a property management level, we need to start a movement. It needs to become a movement. Where I'm from, they're saying that a few flowers don't make it a spring.
Yeah.
You can't make a spring with a few or a couple of flowers. So we need a lot more than that.
Agreed. It's funny. I've always been the person that's not afraid to try things. So I've always been the one that will, like I always told my team, I'll tell them, I'm like, well, we'll try this. They're like, what if it doesn't work? And if it doesn't work, we'll try something else. I mean, we try everything. And that's the hope, is that when we do try things that work well, that other organizations will do the same thing. In the same way is that I look at what other organizations do, the things that have worked well. And I'm like, look what they're doing. This works well. We should replicate that. And that's kind of what we need to do. We learn from each other, and we definitely learn from each other.
It's a wonderful way. It's model the masters, right? You're looking at very successful companies and you just replicate a model. But like you said, at the same time, you don't do just that. You experiment and you try new things. Hey, let's see if this sticks.
Yep.
And especially in a labor market, if it's something that's going to help the labor market with the shortages, this could be huge. Like, you could be the person, the association that actually unlock this enigma of, how do we solve the maintenance shortages? And it's the price is huge. Like, it's really huge at the end of this journey or exercise.
Yeah, I agreed, Adrian. And again, I think I would hope that for most companies out there, they do realize that this is we're in a different time now. And to be able to attract people, you've got to do things that are unconventional. You can't obviously go the way that you've always gone before to find people. We've got to be unconventional now, and that's pretty important as we move forward.
Totally agree, Russ. And from very recent experience, I've traveled all over the country this year, and I'm talking to Uber drivers. I do a lot of Uber, and I'm yet to meet a single Uber driver that will tell me that their job sucks, their schedule sucks. They all love it. The gig economy is real. It's very real. There are people making money by, selling stuff on Amazon, selling stuff on Facebook Marketplace, being Uber drivers, being their own bosses. There are thousands and thousands of businesses that, like, one person, one man show, one person business that do just that. And actually, they're making a lot of money. So
why would you be unhappy in a job every day when you could take what used to be your side hustle that you enjoyed and now make it your main hustle? I did the same thing. I met an Uber driver in San Antonio who was taking me back to the airport, and basically had said to me that prior to COVID, they were a neuromuscular therapist. And she said, great career, a lot of money, never happy, never really enjoyed it, what I did. So they closed the practice during COVID because of the touch thing with neuromuscular therapy. She started driving Uber and then doing a couple of other things, and said she'll never go back because she loves what she does now. She sets her own hours. She works a couple of different jobs. She's her own boss. And again, that's what we're competing with. You're competing. Used to be you would compete with another company in your space, right? So ABC management company would compete with XYZ management company. Now you're competing with happiness. That's who you're competing with. So if you're not bringing happiness to an employee, then they're going to find it somewhere else. So
it's such a great way to put it. You compete with happiness. I just did a post a couple of days ago, and I said, if you're hiring now, you're in property management, you're hiring, you have to look at every single opportunity, not just your competition, your come down the street, the other apartment community. Forget about that. This is very narrow. It's very, very narrow. And if you're looking at your competition, your come down the street, and you're matching what they're paying, or you pay $1 more, realize that they have the same pain as you do. You're not really solving a problem. You are replicating a failing model. Let's just say the truth, the way it is, because this is very common in the industry. Hey, we're paying competitive wages, but people don't want to work. So when I ask, what's a competitive wage? Well, we just ask around and we pay whatever, our comps are paying down the street. But you do realize that they have the same issue as you do. So if you're really expecting that you gotta pay the same and have a different result, that's kind of insane to me.
That is the definition of insanity.
It is.
Doing the same thing again and expecting a different result is the definition of insanity. Yeah.
It is. Russ, the next topic is another one that I'm super passionate about, and it has to do with training. So the National Apartment Association has the CAM certification. So you could become a certified apartment manager. Now, on the maintenance side, all you have is really the KMT, and they did some variations where there's one that has leadership attached to it. Now, titles means a lot. Maybe for someone that's a CEO or a president of a company, they could tell you titles don't mean anything to me, because they're already at the top. It's so high that they could go. For the rest of us, titles do mean a lot. They matter. So this brings me to the next question topic. Okay, why don't we have either at the local level or even at the national level yet? Why can't we build a program that's for certified service managers, or I will say supervisors, but I like the service manager because service, it's way more than just fixing things or supervising people and managing, right? Yeah. Service manager. So I take this example. How do you get promoted in apartment industry to service manager? You're basically the last guy standing.
Longevity, right? Yeah.
Longevity. You've been around. You've been a tech. You did a good job as a tech. Okay, and then something happens with your service manager. They leave. They get fired. They retire, and then the next person that the manager looks at is going to be you. And the way it happens is, well, congratulations. You've been a great maintenance technician, service technician. Here's the keys, and we wish you the best of luck. Yep. So to do this and actually put so much responsibility in someone's hands with no formal training, I think it's irresponsible. You're talking about a person that is going to co-manage an asset that's $50, $60, $100 million asset. I always go back to this comparison and I say, your money, right? When you have your retirement money, or you invest with someone and you give your money to an investment manager, if you were to have $100 million or even $50 million, you hand them to a manager, to a money manager to make more money for you. That manager would be seen as a very successful money manager, right? And then we do the same. It's not a lot different with, with a service manager. You hand them the keys and you say, okay, you're gonna do this for us, but good luck with that.
Yeah.
How can that be? How can that be? It's heartbreaking. We're setting people up for failure, and also we are leaving thousands and thousands of money on the table because we're bleeding money. If you hire someone, if you promote someone that doesn't know what they're doing, they're gonna make a lot of mistakes. It's gonna be a very costly experience for you as a management company. Why not just do things differently?
Well, yeah, one of the things that we do have, you had a great point, is that just because I've been somewhere for a while and you promote me doesn't mean I know how to manage people. Doesn't mean I know how to manage a budget. Doesn't mean I know how to stock a shop. Doesn't mean I know how to, do the things for cost analysis of items. Doesn't mean that I have ever had to do anything with due diligence. It just means that I've been there for a while. I had a manager, a community manager one time in Atlanta, tell me one of the most amazing things. We were sitting having a conversation, and I said to her, I'm like, so you enjoy managing your property? And she said, well, I like to say I co-manage my property with our maintenance director. And I was like, oh, that's fantastic. And she said, yeah. She's like, yes, I manage the office and the leases and all of that. She's like, but he manages the property. She's like, he manages the things that break and the things that need to be kept up and the curb appeal and all of that. So we definitely co-manage. And I said, it would be amazing if everyone looked at it that way. Because then she said, oh yeah, so he has a hand in budgeting and he has a voice in everything that we do. And I thought that was pretty amazing. And you're right. I mean, before someone becomes a manager or supervisor, they need to understand what it means to be a manager. I think that's very important. I mean, I think anyone who's ever managed other people, your first time managing is pretty scary because you're afraid to mess up. You're afraid to mess up. And typically, if you haven't had any training at all, you manage most like the person who you followed or the person who maybe you saw as your previous manager. Now, if you've had the ability to have good and bad managers, then at least I should manage like the good one and not like the bad one. At least you know that. But for some people, if they will never have that experience. And they also, a lot of the problems is if they've never been told differently, then some people think that becoming a supervisor or becoming a manager, that their entire job is telling other people what to do. And they think that's their job. And if you think that's your job as a supervisor or manager, then you will be a very poor supervisor and manager if you think that is your primary job.
You're also going to be in a lot of pain. I could promise you that. I'll give it to you in writing.
You'll be doing nothing but hiring people constantly. That's what you'll be doing. Yeah,
for sure. So, Russ, I know that you're big on technology. You speak on technology. You love technology. You embrace technology. You're a leader. Could you tell us a little bit about some trends that you see in the industry? I personally ask this question because I get bombarded with so many software solutions, right, for the industry. But then, how can a management company look at all this technology that's available out there and sort out and say this is actually the right technology for us? What do you see great that's out there in a market right now that's very useful, tools that are very useful for the site teams mainly to do their jobs with? And then what's kind of like going over the board? What's excessive? What's redundant?
Yeah, and I think there's a lot, like you said, there's a lot of tech. There's a lot of tech. There's a lot of tech for leasing, There's a lot of tech for marketing, definitely for touring. There's a lot of different tech, and even for maintenance, there are some, there's some decent tech tools out there. The problem that I have is that I think sometimes when these technology solutions are decided upon, they are decided on because of what I call a whiz bang, right? Something's like flashy and cool, and they're like, man, look at that. That's awesome. We want to be part of that. Without thinking about what we call a tech stack. And the tech stack is how your company is run. So when you have a tech stack, those are the things that allow you to be able to function, right? So like I'll tell you, so you've heard me say this before, Adrian, I'll tell people like, I'm not in the apartment business, I'm in the association business. That's the business I'm in. So I run an apartment association. So my main piece of technology is what's called an association management system. And my association management system allows me to handle my dues and my events and my membership and everything else. So for me, it's important that that piece of technology encompasses the things that I have to do, but also allows me to do these extra whiz-bang things, or at least be able to work with another piece of technology to allow it to do that. And again, work with is the important part. I've seen so many great, cool, amazing pieces of technology in multifamily that somebody's like, this is great, this is incredible, and we are working on our integration with blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, that working on doesn't work. Because if you launch a technology and if on-site teams are spending most of their time trying to figure out how to get software to work with each other, then you've just caused a problem. You haven't given them a solution. You've caused another problem, and typically it's a bigger problem. So I think, but I will say that in today's day and age, the things that they need to be focused on are things that can simplify the process for the resident, right? Because the resident experience is definitely the entire thing. And just remember that for a huge percentage of people that have got their first apartment during COVID, a huge percentage of them who never did before toured their apartment virtually before they leased. So this is different from any other time, where before virtual tours were there, but it was an additional tool. You did a virtual tour, then you went to the property and you did your tour and filled out your guest card and all that good stuff. Now there were thousands and thousands and hundreds of thousands of people leasing apartments during COVID without ever visiting a community. And therefore the virtual tours and video became so important. And that's not going to rewind. That's not going away. And I think that's so important to know that's not going away. So there are some video tools out there, and I won't mention any products by name. I'll try to be kind and not do that. But there are some video tools out there that are integral to the leasing process. I mean, absolutely integral. I'll think about, my son who's 26, and I think about him and touring. His first time looking at apartments is not going to be going to visit places and go to. He's going to spend quality time online. And if a community does not have a truly engaging online presence, he's gone. He won't even consider them. He would not go look at the community at all. And I think that is something that they have to remember. The world today operates off these things right here. This is how the world operates. And if your product, whatever you're offering, listen, if you're on the property management side, if your community's website, if your community's leasing process is not mobile friendly, you're in a bad place. On the supplier side, if your product cannot be handled via mobile device, again, you've got a problem. You've got a definite problem. You're right. I'm actually traveling tomorrow to a conference in Tennessee to speak about technology. I talk about mobile tech, because I call it the world at your hand. If you don't have, if your world doesn't go into my hand, in my device, pretty much you don't exist in my world. And again, I'm not the younger gen. The younger gen's even more so than me. I'll call them the TikTok generation. I mean, think about the TikTok generation that you've got everything they do is mobile in 17 seconds. So you got that long to impress them, and you got to be able to get them wherever they are. And I think for our people that are in multifamily who were slow to adopt, we were very slow as an industry to grasp onto technology, very slow. But I think I've seen some companies make some huge advances during COVID, mainly because they had to. Their hand was forced. And I want to see that trend continue. I'd like to see people embrace more technology to make the entire resident process easier, because we've been in this great time the past 2.5 years where basically the demand has been so high for apartments that they really didn't have to work hard at leasing. It was basically just to take applications and process residents. That's going to change. We all know it's cyclical. The industry's cyclical. I've been in it forever. So it is a cyclical industry. It's going to change again. And that's where that resident experience is going to become so important, and how you can use technology to streamline that process and embrace it for them.
Well, I'm also thinking, Russ, test runs wouldn't be a great idea to take, community or, a sample of communities and run tests.
Oh yeah.
Everything new. When there's new technology, instead saying, "Hey, this is shiny, it looks great on us. Let's just roll it out." And you roll it out, and then it's super painful. Wouldn't be a better idea to just take 1, 2, 3, 5 of your communities, their top communities, and just give this to them, let them play with it.
And I think that's very important. I think alpha and beta testing products, just because a company has said we've been testing this product or we've rolled it out successfully in however many communities doesn't mean it's going to be successful for your community, for your company. And your back-end software may be completely different than anybody else who's using it right now. So therefore, it could cause more angst for your teams than it would actually be able to. Because if you fix a problem with a piece of software, but you've created 3 more problems, then you haven't fixed a problem. That's what you've done. So I love the idea of, be able to take, this is one of our busiest communities. This is one of our, longest communities, one of our highest occupancy communities, one of our lowest occupancy communities, whatever it may be, and use those as your test subjects. I think it's a great idea.
Russ, you've been an executive for many, many years. People, a lot of people are looking up and they're thinking, hey, I want to become an executive one day. Could you share a few things that, really help you get and help you, maintain into a very top level position that you are in today?
Well, the biggest thing is, learn from your mistakes. That's a huge one. And you need to learn from others' mistakes because you won't live long enough to make them all yourself. So you need to learn from what others have made mistakes at. Surround yourself with people that are smarter than you. Don't micromanage. I think that's so very important. I believe you hire great people and you trust them to do their job. And be there for them as a resource and a support system, but not as a, pointing, looking down there, looking over their shoulder the entire time. I've been very lucky to work with incredible people who literally have helped me everywhere along the way. Find a mentor, and learn as much as you can from that person. Having someone who has walked before you in the shoes that you're doing, kind of giving you advice, is one of the best things ever. I've been lucky that I had, again, a couple of amazing mentors, and I've now tried to be a mentor to a few others. And I think that's very important. I think that for anyone who's looking to move up, find yourself a great mentor, someone who's not afraid to say to you, who's not just going to heap praise upon you all the time. A mentor that can give the hard critique of you and say, hey, listen, this is great, but here's what you're doing, and here's how it's coming across. And I think that's very important.
Thank you for sharing. This is amazing.
You bet.
Next section, Russ. I have a few rapid fire questions for you. Ready?
I'm ready.
Books, favorite books, fiction, nonfiction, professional type books. What do you like? What do you read?
Favorite fiction book of all time is Catch-22 by Joseph Heller. Amazing book. Probably reread it 15 times in my life. There's amazing messages in Catch-22. Everyone should read it. My favorite business book is kind of funny. It's whatever I'm reading right now. I could say, if you want to do the all-time book, it's there's one that's called What Color Is Your Parachute? And that one kind of helps you figure out who you are, and kind of where your skills would be best used. I'm reading a book right now by David Allen called Getting Things Done. It is a really great book. It's talks about stress-free productivity and how you transform the way you work by de-stressing. And what he's teaching you in this book, is I'm reading it right now, is that if you're relaxed, you'll always be more effective. And so that's a very powerful book, Getting Things Done. That's a good one.
Russ, how did a failure or apparent failure help you achieve some future success in your career?
Yeah. Wow, that's a great question. Here's just a little example. When I said I'm not afraid to try anything, we were in the lockdown of COVID down here, and then people believe that Florida didn't have COVID. We actually did have COVID. It wasn't as long as everybody else, but we did have it. We tried an event to recognize and support the on-site teams that have been working so hard straight through COVID without any breaks or whatever. So we did this on-site appreciation day thing, but I was in my belief that this was good and the thing we needed to be doing. It was too early. They still weren't ready to be out and amongst other folks. And we did this thing outside, as a big picnic fun day. They were still so nervous about being out and about that we did it too early. And for the people who came, they had a blast. but we didn't get the crowds that we wanted or expected. But because of that, I learned that, like what I should have done on that one is I probably should have I asked a handful of people, would this be a good idea? And I probably should have like surveyed the wider membership to see if it was, a good idea. Because the handful of people I asked were all in and they came, but the rest of the folks did not. So that's kind of a thought there.
Russ, what piece of advice do you have for someone young that's about to enter real life, go get a job, like start their life really on the pond?
Yeah. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Ask as many questions as you can, especially if you're doing the interview process, ask questions. Don't come in blind to a new job. So, asking questions and getting as much information as you can is very important. Next piece of information I would give them is it's the same one I gave to the executive, find yourself a mentor. Find yourself a mentor that can help you kind of achieve the path that you want to achieve. And even if maybe that path's not the one that you thought it was, I think that's pretty important there.
Russ, in the last, past 3 years, what new belief, behavior, or habit has most improved your life?
I think I've always believed that, work should be fun, and that if we laugh, we're more productive. I think that's it. But I will tell you that during this whole period, whereas I went from being in an office with people all the time to being in a remote situation, and I had to have my team connected, even though we're remote. So we do a morning meeting every morning on Zoom, and there's all 6 of us on Zoom, and we do it. It can last anywhere from 15 to 45 minutes. And sometimes I realize we don't need to talk about work. We just need to laugh and be together. And so that belief system has really, truly been so strong with those last 2 years and keeping our team. And we're as close as any team could be, even though we don't sit beside each other in an office every day.
Russ, our conversation here is about to come to an end. I do want to ask you in closing, is there anything you wish you would have discussed during this episode? Would you have wished I've asked certain questions and I didn't, that you had answers for?
No, I mean, you talked about one of the things that's so important for me, Adrian, and that is, for us trying to spend more time in making sure our employees are happy. This is something that I have been preaching for a very long time. It is so much work to hire and train a new person. It is so much work that if we were to spend that same amount of effort on keeping our employees happy, imagine what we could do. And then we would always be able to bring in new people along the way, but we would have those experienced people to be able to, keep that, the progress maintaining while those new people could bring in new and fresh ideas. Whereas if we're constantly turning over our entire staff, it's more chaos. It's like managing chaos more than it's anything else. So, but no, thank you for allowing me to, talk about my passion for making sure that, people are happy where they are.
Russ, thank you so much for taking the time out of your busy schedule to come and be here with me and with the audience. I appreciate everything that you shared. I had so many other questions that I wanted to ask you, but we ran out of time. I hope to get you back here for a follow-up episode soon.
Sounds great. We'll talk again. Thank you, Adrian. I appreciate you having me on.
Everybody, thank you very much for watching us. This is Multifamily Chronicles. I'm your host, Adrian Daniela, and I hope to see you back here soon. Have a great day.